Dune is a franchise that we have extensively explored on this channel, and yet there's always something more to dissect. This is because the universe is so vast, filled with multiple factions, races, and political families, usually involved directly with the plot, that it's pretty much impossible to discuss them all. However, two of the main rival houses of Dune get a lot of screen time in the movies, series, and of course the novels. House Harkonnen and House Atreides. In fact, the first novel is pretty much largely set in a Cold War-like situation between the two houses. In today's video, we'll be exploring this deep-seated rivalry between the two grand houses. Interested? Keep watching. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Why House Atreides and House Harkonnen are so important in the Dune universe. Both of these houses are incredibly important in the Dune universe and integral to the plot. Starting with House Atreides, we all know that this is the house that produced Paul Atreides, the Messiah of the Fremen, the prophesized Muad'Dib. However, there was more to House Atreides before Paul came around, thanks to his illustrious family and successful father. House Atreides had a hold over the planetary fief of Caladan in the Imperial Kingdom, and kept their operational headquarters on this planet. The house had ruled the planet for 20 generations, up until the last few years of Duke Leto Atreides I. A system of government that led to a well-run society and contented citizens on the spiritual level was perfected by the nobles of House Atreides. Furthermore, in sharp opposition to House Harkonnen's capital, Gedi Prime, House Atreides maintained the oceanic planet of Caladan as a beautiful, affluent paradise with comparatively low industrial levels. The house had also come up with its own battle language and had sword masters, war masters, and mentats to train and command its army, so it was also highly skilled in combat. The main patriarchal figure of House Atreides that we are introduced to in the plot is Duke Leto Atreides I, Paul's father. He was a brilliant leader and was thus incredibly favored by the other nobles and wealthy men in the Imperial Kingdom. Further, his concubine was Lady Jessica, a stellar Bene Gesserit and brilliant woman who was completely devoted to him and bore him their only son. They were a strong house as far as both economy and politics were concerned. Further, their primary importance lies in the way they have been positioned in the plot by Frank Herbert. The fact that they were called upon by the ruler of the imperial throne, King Shaddam IV, to go to Dune and take over the reins of the precious and highly lucrative spice production. When this responsibility was bestowed upon them, they came completely into the limelight and were inevitably targeted by envious houses. Next, let us take a look at House Harkonnen. House Harkonnen is known as the evil house in the Dune universe. This house is largely shown to be helmed by Baron Harkonnen, a horrid yet cunning individual who always had one scheme or another running through his brain. He is one of the smartest, sneakiest, and most cunning guys there is in the Dune universe. In stark opposition to the beautiful and lush planet Caladan, Baron Harkonnen hails from a planet known as Gedi Prime. Gedi Prime is a harsh, vicious planet covered with slave pits, a dystopic industrial landscape that looks like a hellhole in comparison to Caladan. Most notably, House Harkonnen was known for its cunning and evil political strategies. It was also known for its ambition, malice, hostility, and brutality. It must be noted that House Harkonnen did not enjoy the same amount of prestige as House Atreides. We will come to the why of that later in this video. Consequently, they were a minor house, and while they were still considered nobles, they were not at the same level as House Atreides or the Emperor's house, House Corrino. After decades of toiling as a house minor, the Harkonnen family's influence gradually increased inside the Landsraad, mostly as a result of their deft manipulation of the whale fur market, chiefly carried out by Baron Dmitri Harkonnen and his son, the infamous Baron Vladimir Harkonnen. By boosting manufacturing output while limiting production costs, House Harkonnen had amassed power by disregarding morally responsible business practices. And it comes as no surprise to anyone that dread and terror served as the basic cornerstone of Harkonnen governance. Intimidation tactics were utilized for administration, managing the Harkonnen household on a daily basis and commanding the Harkonnen forces. Furthermore, the Baron's family controlled Arrakis for many generations. In fact, they had control over the desert planet for about 80-odd years before the events of the first novel. However, it is to be noted that they didn't own Dune. It was the Emperor's territory. However, they had a contract with him which allowed them to have complete power and authority over Dune and Arrakis, and made them responsible for all spice trade and production in the Dune universe. So, for him to lose this to his archenemy Duke Leto Atreides was an insult to his enormous ego, even if there was a larger play at hand. The Baron thus devoted the entirety of his time and ambition to ensuring the succession of his family to the top of the Imperium via training and grooming his nephew, the Na-Baron Feyd-Rautha Harkonnen. This house came into the limelight as a result of Baron Harkonnen's plans to destroy House Atreides and assassinate Duke Leto, marking them as the primary antagonist for House Atreides. Understanding the intense rivalry between the two houses. This iconic rivalry is the starting point of the Dune novels and has an incredibly interesting history that spans multiple years and involves various generations of both houses. Let's dive right into it. It was over 10,000 years ago, during the Butlerian Jihad, a fight against all computational and artificial intelligence, when the deadly rivalry between the House of Atreides and Harkonnen first began. During this epic war of man versus machine, the Synchronized Empire, led by the computer Evermind Omnius, had only one outpost left on the planet Corrin by the year 88 BG, when the League of Nobles had all but conquered them, having turned the tides against the machines. Vorian Atreides served as Supreme Bashar of the Army of Humanity, the League's armed forces during this period. On the other hand, Primero Xavier Harkonnen's grandson, Bashar Abulard Harkonnen, served under Vorian and was one of his closest friends at the time. To end the war once and for all, when the Battle of Corrin was initiated by the League to finally defeat Omnius, it was propelled by the fanaticism of the cult of Serena Butler. The Bridge of Hrethker, an orbiting network of human-populated cargo pods, was made visible, but it was rigged and would detonate as soon as the fleet crossed it, killing everyone. This plan did not sit well with Bashar Harkonnen, who declined to cross the bridge because he didn't want to contribute to the deaths of 2 million people. Thus, his commander, Vorian Atreides, removed him from his duties and imprisoned him after he refused to budge from his position. However, after escaping from prison, Abulard turned off the armaments for the whole League fleet. However, this did not prevent the League from winning. If anything, it made the battle more bloody. After the war was over, he was declared a coward for his actions, which amounted to treachery for many of the people involved. In fact, initially, he had been given a death sentence since his decisions had derailed their entire battle plan. But Vorian recommended that he be declared a coward and expelled from the League. Thus, House Harkonnen fell in the eyes of the others and lost all the respect they had in the Imperium. This sparked a decades-long rivalry between the two houses. The great houses of Dune have interestingly developed their own word for such vendettas, the Canly, because they have become so ritualized. There is always conflict in the galaxy. Further, after being exiled to the backwater planet of Lankyvale, Abulard raised his own family there, giving birth to Durdos, the founder of House Harkonnen, and 2 sons. The jihad stories they heard as children made them loathe the name Atreides, keeping the hatred between the two houses very much alive in their hearts. However, the story doesn't end there. Griffin Harkonnen, the ambitious great-grandson of Abulard, pursued Vorian after he was banished to the barren planet Arrakis in 4 BG in exchange for the security of his homeworld Kepler. Thus, it was in the middle of the Arrakeen desert that Griffin encountered Vor in a Zen-Sunni Fremen camp. Griffin and Vorian were instructed to fight to put an end to their bloody feud by Naib Sharnak, a Fremen. A duel thus ensued, and Griffin caught Vorian off guard during the fight by telling him that his wife on Kepler had died. This put Vorian at his mercy, but he chose not to murder him out of respect, declaring the conflict resolved and leaving the two in the desert. But bad blood isn't that easy to erase. Turns out that Griffin was then killed by the Atreides twins Hilla and Andros, who reignited the animosity between the houses. Vorian attempted to support the suffering Harkonnen family on Lanky Vale by making a covert donation to their whaling operation out of guilt for Griffin's passing. However, Tula Harkonnen, the younger sister of Griffin and Valia, was hell-bent on exacting revenge on them in the name of the feud. Vorian eventually dueled Valia on Wallach 9 and was thought to be dead by his Caledonian kin, but in fact, he lived and chose to start over. Meanwhile, Willem Atreides founded House Atreides in Vorian's honor and in opposition to House Harkonnen, which was acquiring more and more power under Danvis Harkonnen. His relatives nonetheless continued the feud. 9 years later, Danvis and Willem were both contending to serve as the new Emperor Javico's chamberlain. Danvis was deceived by Gerhard, who replaced him as Baron while working with his cousin to frame Willem and ultimately murder him. On his deathbed, Willem appealed for the feud to end, but as we know, his request fell on deaf ears. Later, during attacks against the Harkonnen worlds, Duke Leto personally released a large number of slaves. Gurney Halleck and Duncan Idaho, two of his most dependable and capable warriors, were both freed from Harkonnen's control and swore their complete allegiance to the just and inspirational Duke. The Baron Harkonnen has since then attempted every conceivable method of sabotage and murder to take down House Atreides, with his assassination plot being his masterstroke. For those unaware, this is how it all played out. When Duke Leto was asked by the Emperor to rule Dune, he sensed that a trap was waiting for him right from the get-go. The most significant planet in the universe and the sole source of spice, Arrakis, would never be willingly given up by the Baron. The only thing that gave House Harkonnen some kind of legitimacy and honor in the Imperium was its steady production of spice. The truth was that the Baron had struck a deal with the Emperor, a cunning politician who had grown envious and afraid of Duke Leto. In fact, the Baron's siege of House Atreides was made possible by the Emperor's clandestine provision of military men. The most cunning element of the Baron's scheme was what held everything together. In order to ensure that House Harkonnen could eliminate its rival, win the Emperor's favor, and establish unchallenged dominion over Dune all in one fell swoop, he had bribed a close advisor in House Atreides to act as his agent and drop the keep's shields. His plan was successful, and he managed to drive the Atreides family from their home on Arrakis. Duke Leto died during this calculated attack, and while the Baron did get some satisfaction, his plan would later backfire, thanks to the young and enigmatic Paul Atreides. Last but not least, and here's a major spoiler alert, if you want to know how this age-old feud ended, this is what happened. On Arrakis, in 10,191 AG, the Atreides engaged the Harkonnens in combat during the Desert War, which broke out as a result of a Harkonnen alliance with the ruling Carino family. The Harkonnen dynasty was finally brought to an end in this struggle when Baron Vladimir Harkonnen was assassinated by Paul's sister, Alia Atreides, along with his nephew and designated heir, Feyd Rautha, being taken down by Paul himself. Thus, the feud ended with one house being completely wiped out by the other. Why does the Emperor hate House Atreides? Everything is political in the Dune universe, and, well, politics are personal. The reason why Emperor Shaddam IV hated House Atreides purely had to do with the political landscape of Dune. Every small slip-up could lead to a shift of power in the Imperium. Thus, Emperor Shaddam was always wary of other nobles, especially the virtuous and successful Duke Leto Atreides. There was pressure on the 81st Padishah Emperor Shaddam Carino IV to continue the 10,000-year-long rule of the Carino family. The most likely aristocratic house to endanger this 10,000-year legacy was, of course, the House Atreides, since Duke Leto was a revered member among the nobles and was looked up to by his subjects. This put the Emperor's stern and unchallenged reign over the Imperium in jeopardy. Furthermore, it was commonly known that House Atreides' armed forces rivaled and in some circumstances even surpassed the Sardaukar, House Carino's elite army, in terms of expertise. However, the Atreides armies were considerably smaller than the Sardaukar, and this offered the Emperor a tactical chance to eliminate a potentially stronger military force, effectively nipping the problem in the bud. Thus, in order to ensure that someone inspirational like Duke Leto didn't even have the chance to overthrow him, the Emperor decided that he would rather eliminate a good and loyal house while turning a blind eye and even quietly supporting the Harkonnens through the Sardaukar forces. The Emperor had a chance to take action before the Atreides could build a base of power by ordering them to Arrakis. He recognized that the wealth of Arrakis would make the Atreides affluent enough to pose an even larger threat. Thus, it was a risky decision on his behalf, but he had faith in the Baron's plan. However, he didn't really think it through, or he discovered it too late. But if Leto could win over the Fremen, the Atreides could be able to increase their military might to the point where they would pose a real threat to his Sardaukar, which is, of course, exactly what ended up happening following the death of Duke Leto. Shaddam wanted a political threat eliminated, but the Harkonnens saw an opportunity to finally put an end to their millennia-old feud with the Atreides by destroying them. Even though Shaddam didn't actually want the Atreides eliminated, their objectives were close enough that he probably wouldn't have felt anything more than a moment's sorrow if the entire Atreides family had been eliminated. The rivalry between House Harkonnen and House Atreides takes center stage in the story of Dune, especially in the parts that have been adapted for the big screen. In fact, Denis Villeneuve's upcoming film will further show the intricate schemes that take place between the two houses. Do you think there was ever any possibility of the Emperor supporting Duke Leto? Why or why not? Let us know in the comments section down below. And until the next time, thanks for watching, stay safe out there, and have a marvelous day.